What is going on, YouTube? Espresso Shucko here, and today we are talking about Dialga Origin as well as Dialga Base to a lesser extent. So we did this for the Palkia Origin form, and we're going to do it for Dialga too. Recently, I just put out a Dialga battle video. It was a fun time. It was a lot smoother than the Palkia video went, that's for sure. Dialga here in its Origin form has raw, intensive bulk. You might even say it is hard as steel because it's got base 120 in both of its defenses, and that base 100 HP complements those defenses really nicely. The main difference here between Origin form Dialga and base form Dialga is Dialga loses 20 points in its attack and gains 20 points into its special defense when it goes into the Origin form, and it does need to be holding the Adamant Crystal to maintain the Origin form. Now, the Adamant Crystal, similar to Palkia's Lustrous Globe, does give a 20% boost to Dialga's stab moves. So in this case, it's Steel and Dragon, which is going to be relatively nice. Flash Cannon appreciates having a 20% boost because Flash Cannon's only a base 80 move. Now, if you wanted to live on the edge and go for Steel Beam for an insane amount of damage at the cost of losing half your health each time, you could do that. Steel Beam would jump from 80 power to 140 power as a direct upgrade to Flash Cannon, but regardless of whether you hit your target or not, you do lose 50% of your HP. So Steel Beam is incredibly risky to use. If you wanted to and just absolutely just delete things, sure, be my guest, you could run the Steel Beam, but honestly, I think Flash Cannon is a bit of a safer option despite the significantly less power. But the nice thing here too is you do have the potential to lower your target's special defense one stage, and honestly, if you soften some things up with, say, Acid Spray, Metal Sound, or Fake Tears, you can go the extra mile with the Flash Cannon that way. As far as Dragon-type options go, we're probably going to be wanting to run the Draco Meteor. It is a base 130 powered attack, it's 90 accuracy, and it does come with the unfortunate drawback of lowering your special attack 2 stages, but this is probably Dialga's most reliable Dragon-type stab option. Now, you could use Dragon Pulse, which is significantly lower at 85 power with no drawbacks, but Draco Meteor is probably the most reliable. Dialga does have a signature Dragon-type move, similar to how Palkia has Spatial Rend. It does have Roar of Time, which on top of that just sounding incredibly hard, it's a base 150 move that is essentially Dragon-type Hyper Beam that renders Dialga immobile each time you use the Roar of Time. Now, back in the Generation 8 format with Dynamax, you could get away with running Roar of Time because Dynamax would take away the drawback of Roar of Time by turning it into Max Wormwind at base 150 power. But unfortunately, depending on who you are, Dynamax is long gone. I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority on the group that actually misses it. But Roar Time is basically going to be leaving Dialga immobile each time you use the move. So unfortunately, Dialga is going to be a bit of a sitting duck. Now, alternatively too, on base Dialga, if you wanted to, if you were a crazy mad lad, you could throw the choice specs onto Dialga, lock yourself into Roar Time, have an entire team of redirectors, or I don't know, even just be brave and just hope your opponent doesn't attack Dialga, and just click Roar Time over and over again. You could do that, I guess, but that feels like playing the game on extra hard difficulty. So yeah. I kind of wish Roar Time got the Blood Moon and Gigaton Hammer treatment, where instead of being a Hyper Beam clone, you just can't use it back to back. I think that would be really nice for Roar Time, but I digress. Dragon-type Hyper Beam off Dialga, it's still a thing. But anyways, let's get back into our main point. Roar Time, strong, risky, Draco Meteor, slightly less riskier. So you do have that base 130 powered move. And then as far as coverage goes, Earth Power is a nice move because you can hit Steel types for super effective damage, since Steel types would naturally wall the combination of Dialga's 2 stab type attacks. So Earth Power is a really nice move to have on it at the end of the day. Though that said, if you wanted to, you could run Aura Sphere, which is a fighting type attack that does hit Steel types for super effective damage as well, just just saying. And it also doesn't have to worry about accuracy shenanigans, so if you're playing against, say, like Minimize or Double Team, well, at least you do have the Aura Sphere to hit them, so there is that. And it is a means of hitting Terrapagos for super effective damage. So Aura Sphere could go a long way as well. Aura Sphere and Earth Power are probably your two best combinations to pair with Draco Meteor and Flash Cannon for that matter though. But Dialga does get access to Blizzard, so you could go for hard hitting ice type damage right there. And if you have Snowscape on the field, well, Blizzard becomes a spread move that bypasses accuracy, so there is that. Dialga does get access to Body Press, which uses your physical defense to do damage calculation, and on top of that, it does get Iron Defense. But honestly, that's probably better for Zamazenta to do than either form of Dialga. And honestly, base Dialga is probably better off doing that than Origin Dialga, since base Dialga can hold an item, so it could have a berry to heal itself up if it starts getting worn down, whereas Origin form Dialga is holding that Adamant Crystal. So Body Press might not be necessarily the best move to run on Dialga in its Origin form, but it is there just in case. You could run Focus Blast, so if you wanted a stronger version of special fighting type coverage instead of Aura Sphere, you could use the Focus Blast. 70 accuracy, but 120 base power. That feels like it would be nice, but I mean, Focus Blast does have the nickname of Focus Miss for a reason, so just keep that in mind. You could use Overheat if you wanted to have some raw fire type damage, especially if you wanted to go Tera Fire on Dialga. Tera Fire and Overheat in the sun could be nice, considering that both Koraidon and Groudon are still fairly frequent on the ladder, so you could get some boosted damage into the Overheat with Sun, giving it a 50% boost, and if you want to go Tera Fire to have that extra damage, you can do that too. But one thing to keep in mind is Dialga is naturally a Steel type as well as a Dragon type, so turning into a Fire type would keep your Ground type weakness. So you do have to be very, very careful if you do run into Groudons. But you could do Overheat. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. And plus, you do get to hit Steel types as well. So like I said about fighting and Ground type coverage, Fire type coverage is definitely nothing to scoff at on Dialga as well. You could run Power Gem if you wanted to hit Ice types for super effective damage. But Power Gem is just kind of a weaker move. It doesn't have any bonus effects right there. So probably not the best to run on it, but it is an option at the end of the day. And similar to Palkia, you could run Thunder and then have, like, say, maybe some rain support. Dialga being part Steel does appreciate having the rain on the field, since fire type attacks are going to do significantly less damage to it, and it is neutral to fire to begin with, so having fire type attacks do less damage could be nice, and having Thunder to hit things for hard damage as well as being able to bypass accuracy could be nice. Like maybe a Dialga and Pelipper combination might not be too bad, especially if we do get a double restricted format down the road. Maybe Dialga and Miraidon could be nice. Dialga Groudon could be nice too. Because the main thing here too is Dialga's two abilities are Telepathy and Pressure. So Telepathy makes it so that your partners can't hit you with any damaging moves, and one unfortunate caveat to that is you also can't use Pollen Puff to hit Dialga, which means you can't actually heal yourself with Pollen Puff on Amoonguss, because that is blocked by Telepathy, unfortunately, which I did have the unfortunate pleasure of finding that out in my battle video. And then Dialga's other ability is Pressure. So basically, if you're targeted by an opponent's move, that move loses an additional PP. So that could be nice for dealing with restricted Pokemon with their limited PP signature moves. So that is one nice thing at the end of the day, especially if you make a nice swamp into, say, like maybe an Electro Drift off of Miraidon, or maybe, say, a Glacial Lance off of Ice Rider. Now, probably not the best to switch in Dialga into either of those moves, but you could hypothetically do it. And if you wanted to build Dialga and you wanted to incorporate, say, Pollen Puff into your strategy with, say, an Amoonguss, you might want to run Pressure instead so that you can actually heal yourself with Pollen Puff at the end of the day. So that, just keep that in mind as far as some moves go. Now, typically before Dialga Origin came out, what you could potentially see off of Dialga would be Trick Room, especially since Dialga being at base 90, it's not the slowest thing for Trick Room, but it's kind of a weird, awkward state. But you would see Trick Room, Flash Cannon, if I can spell. You would see Flash Cannon, Draco Meteor, and then you would maybe see Roar of Time instead of Draco Meteor, or you would see Earth Power, or another coverage move. So you could potentially see something like this. Dialga here going for that Trick Room would enable its partners to do stuff, especially in a double restricted format. And honestly, I don't necessarily think Dialga Origin is going to want to run Trick Room. I think it would definitely benefit if it had a partner that could set Trick Room for it. I definitely think in Trick Room, Dialga could flip the matchup on certain things. Now, I don't think it gets any special Dark or special Ghost type moves, so let's just take a quick look right here. We'll hit the special category right here, and let's just type in Dark. Yeah, it doesn't get any special Dark, and I don't think it gets any special Ghost. So that would be the one benefit that base Dialga does have, that 120 in, because it does get Shadow Claw, which is a physical move. It's not the strongest hitting physical move, but it does have a boosted crit rate, and it is a means of hitting not only Calyrex Shadow Rider for super effective damage, it also hits Lunala for super effective damage. So unfortunately, you can't really benefit from having that surprise Ghost type coverage. Now, if you want to go Tera Ghost, Tera Blast, on the other hand, you could definitely do that. And I really do like the idea of Tera Ghost, Tera Blast on Dialga Origin. That's actually what I'm running on my own. This is actually the EV spread that I have on my Dialga too. I like the idea of having 2 points extra into speed to hit 112, and then that way if I have Tailwind or a -2 speed drop into a Shadow Rider, I can outspeed it. Now, I have Earth Power on mine instead of Tera Blast, but Tera Ghost, Tera Blast could be really nice for hitting a Calyrex Shadow Rider for major damage, especially if they've already burned their Tera. So that is definitely a really good option to consider. And plus, it's also neutral to Steel, so Steel types don't completely wall that move set as well. Now, I think Tera Ghost is also really good too, because it also removes your fighting type weakness and gives you a fighting type immunity. So you don't have to worry about, say, necessarily Zamazenta going for body press. And on top of that, one nice thing about the Earth Power as well as Aura Sphere is both of those moves hit Zamazenta for super effective damage when it's not terastallized. So that's kind of why I like having those two moves, but you could have the Tera Blast as an alternative if you're not too worried about the Zamazenta matchup. Now, some good partners that I think benefit Dialga, Grimmsnarl is probably one of the best ones, especially since it gets both Light Screen and Reflect. I like running Light Clay, Screen Grimmsnarl with Fake Tears next to mine, but what you could also do is you could take the screens out. You could maybe say run Fake Tears. Oh, I already have Fake Tears in there. We can put Scary Face there instead, and instead of Light Screen, maybe we have Fake Out. And then that way too, we can also have a little bit of support by making one of our opponents flinch. So you could potentially benefit from having Grimmsnarl with Fake Out instead. And if you did something like this instead, I would run a Citrus Berry instead of a Light Clay. Now, if you have screens, I would definitely run the Light Clay, and then that way you'd get the extra 3 turns on both screens while reducing the amount of damage that Dialga takes, because Dialga doesn't really have a good means of increasing its HP outside of rest. So probably for the best to limit the amount of damage that it can take. And plus, Origin Dialga does have to hold that Adamant Crystal, which means you can't run a Citrus Berry on it like you might run on a base Dialga. So probably for the best that way. And as far as your abilities go too, like, Dialga's fairly flexible with telepathy and pressure. Like, if you wanted to, you could run Bulldoze next to telepathy Dialga. You could run Discharge, you could run Earthquake, Lava Plume, all of which are great moves for Dialga to not get hit with while also benefiting your side of the field. Like, Discharge and Lava Plume both do respectable damage while each having a 30% chance to land their respective status, with Discharge having Paralysis and Lava Plume having Burn. They're both spread moves as well, so unless you run into Wide Guard, that could be really nice at the end of the day. Bulldoze could be nice because while it is a weaker ground type spread move, you can get a speed drop into your opponent's side of the field while Dialga dodges it, and then Dialga can go for some big damage there with maybe, say, a Draco Meteor or a Flash Cannon, especially if you've already got some special defense drops in there. I think Amoonguss is also another good partner for Dialga. So if you're running Pressure Dialga, you can Pollen Puff it and restore some HP back. And the way how Pollen Puff works, too, is if the target's an ally, it's a 50% heal right there. So Dialga has a lot of HP when you have max investment. Like, you have 207 right there. If you brought that down to 206 just to make it even, well, that's 103 HP coming from the pollen buff if you have this kind of a spread on Dialga. So that's really nice at the end of the day coming off of pollen puff. You could also go for Rage Powder with Amoonguss to redirect attacks away if you're worried about an Urshifu, especially a single or wrap. Well, I guess both forms, because I was going to say one or the other. But if you're worried about Urshifu, you can always Rage Powder away close combat. If it's Urshifu single strike, you could even go Tera Fairy on Amoonguss to wall both of its stabs. You can Rage Powder away the attack, and then Dialga can hit it. If it's Rapid Strike Urshifu, well, you don't even have to Terastallize Amoonguss. You can keep it in its base Grass Poison typing. Grass resists Surging Strikes, Poison resists close combat, so you can have that. If Flutter Mane hits the field too, you can pull away Moonblasts, because while Dialga is neutral to Fairy, it doesn't appreciate taking a Choice Specs or Photosynthesis boosted special attack Moonblast by any means. So being able to redirect some attacks away from Dialga if it's a Flutter Mane could be nice, and plus Flash Cannon into a non-terastallized or Tera Fairy Flutter Mane just does so much damage to a Flutter Mane. Like, you need to run special defense and HP investment to be able to live that. If you're going up against, say, like a Specs Flutter Mane, it's not taking that Flash Cannon good, so being able to redirect away with Amoonguss could be really nice. So I used both Amoonguss and Grimmsnarl with my Dialga. I also used Thundurus and Landorus Therian and Shiyu, so I don't have them on the list, but what I was thinking too was if you want to play Dialga to a Trick Room route, what you could do for some really good partners outside of Amoonguss, because Amoonguss is wonderful in Trick Room, and also Brute Bonnet. Brute Bonnet could be a nice counterpart to Amoonguss, but you could run Ursaluna as a heavy-hitting special attack partner for Dialga under Trick Room. You got that Blood Moon and Terra Normal with the Life Orb to do some raw damage. Like, Ursaluna Blood Moon is a base 135 special attack, so if you slap a Modest Nature on there and max special attack investment, you're hitting 205. It's got some respectable bulk at 113 HP and 120 physical defense. The 65 special defense, it's a little bit to be desired, but Ursaluna's got some great physical bulk right there. It can hit a lot of things for a lot of heavy damage with the Blood Moon and the Hyper Voice. Earth Power is nice too because it does hit the steel types that would wall Dialga's two main stabs as well as Ursaluna's normal type stab. So stab Earth Power could be really nice off of Ursaluna, and that could even open up a move slot on Dialga so that instead of running, say, Earth Power, you could run that Aura Sphere or your coverage move of choice. I think a really good Trick Room setter for Dialga could be Mimikyu. A max HP invested Mimikyu with an impish nature with 236 EVs into defense. This handles Urshifu really nicely. Like, if you go up against a Choice Banded Rapid Strike Urshifu, this is only an 18% chance to one-shot Mimikyu, and if you're not going up against Choice Banded Rapid Strike, great. Surging Strikes does not knock you out. You can get a Trick Room up. You can get Will-O-Wisp up the following turn. You can go for Play Rough, which does a fair amount of damage to both forms of Urshifu, especially when they're not terastallized. And if it's Single Strike Urshifu, well, Disguise is going to save you from Wicked Blow, which is great. You can put a Mental Herb on Mimikyu, and then that way you don't have to worry about Taunt. And also, you don't have to worry about Encore too, because the Mental Herb does block Encore, so you don't have to worry about getting locked into Trick Room and then having Mimikyu just use Trick Room again. So you do have the nice tech right there of Mimikyu being a very reliable Trick Room setter. You don't have to have necessarily Tera Ghost or Tera Fairy on it, but if you want to double up on your Fairy type stab, you could go Tera Fairy, or you could go for a more defensive Tera, like maybe you are worried about that rapid strikes, surging strikes. You can go Tera Grass, and then that way you resist surging strikes relatively nicely. You can get Trick Room up, and then even if you wanted to, you could run the Shadow Sneak on Mimikyu just to pick up some weakened Pokemon. Maybe you bring a Sweeper down to a Focus Sash. You do have the Shadow Sneak. Maybe Dialga drops a Draco Meteor on something, brings them down to their Focus Sash, and Mimikyu just finishes them off with the Shadow Sneak. Dialga doesn't have to get all the goals here. It can go for some assists as well. So you do have that at the end of the day. Armarouge could be really nice as either a Trick Room setter or a Trick Room sweeper companion for Dialga. You can use either Armor Cannon, which is a special fire type version of Close Combat, whereas it does drop Armarouge's defenses one stage, but you could also run Heat Wave if you didn't want to, or if you wanted to run Telepathy, you could run Lava Plume, which could be great for potentially burning your opponents, not your partners. Make sure you don't burn your partners. They kind of don't like that, unless it's a Baxcalibur. It can't be burned. But point is, you could run Lava Plume if you wanted to, and you also get access to Acid Spray on Armarouge, so you could soften some things up with a -2 special defense drop, and then Dialga just really appreciates that. And Expanding Force is a great Psychic type option to run on Armarouge, and then that way that kind of segues into Indeedee. Indeedee can bring in the Psychic Surge, so you don't have to worry about any priority moves coming your way. So you don't have to worry about Dialga taking, like, say, a Vacuum Wave off of a weakened Ursaluna Blood Moon, because that does come up every once in a while. Like, you don't have to worry about Ursaluna trying to get a leg up on Dialga outside of Trick Room with that Vacuum Wave and just finishing off a weakened Dialga. You can have the Follow Me to redirect attacks away, similar to what I was mentioning with Rage Powder off of the Amoonguss. And Follow Me does have the nice added effect of not being redirected or being ignored by grass types like Rage Powder does. So you can use the Follow Me, don't have to worry about grass types ignoring Follow Me. And plus, Indeedee does get Trick Room in both of its forms, whether it's the male Indeedee or the female Indeedee. So you could run a Focus Sash on Indeedee or a Psychic Seed. Honestly, the Psychic Seed would probably be nice. But if you wanted to run a more defensive Indeedee on the physical side, you could get away with the Rocky Helmet. And then this way too, you can redirect attacks away. Let's just put a Bold Nature on this right quick. If we go up to about, say, 230, we'll do 220. That brings us up to 124. We'll go max attack, or max HP, not max attack. Max HP to bring us up to 177, 36 into our special defense. Well, Surging Strikes is not going to appreciate the Rocky Helmet by any means, especially if we wanted to have a more anti-Urshifu Tera per se. So, say, for example, maybe we go the Tera Grass. Well, we can resist that, and the Rocky Helmet will just continuously chip away at that Urshifu. So it'll lose us 6 of its max HP for each strike, which means there's 3/6 right there, so that should be about half the Urshifu's HP. So if you really wanted to, you could redirect attacks away from Dialga with Indeedee, especially if there's an Urshifu on the field, and at that point, Urshifu is naturally faster than Dialga. You could probably finish off the Urshifu there with either an Earth Power or an Aura Sphere or even a Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor would definitely seal the deal. But point is, you don't need the heaviest hitting attack to finish off an Urshifu that's that weakened at the end of the day. But one thing I should point out is, with the exception of Mimikyu, most of these partners have been special attackers. So let's talk about another good physical partner for it, and that would be Iron Hands. You can slap an Assault Vest onto Iron Hands, and Dialga would really appreciate having the Fake Out support from Iron Hands, as well as Iron Hands being able to restore its own HP with the Drain Punch. So you could do the combination of Drain Punch, Fake Out, Wild Charge, or Supercell Slam, but Supercell Slam is a little bit on the riskier side, because if you miss or your opponent protects or goes Tera Ground, you lose half your HP. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that this generation introduced the concept of changing your typing and be anything technically being able to become a ground type is a real possibility, I would definitely say Supercell Slam would be worth the gamble, but Tera Ground just kind of really threatens Supercell Slam. Even if you did hypothetically want to run Trick Room on the Dialga, Iron Hands would appreciate that, and it would be able to fake out one of your opponent's faster Pokemon. You can get that Trick Room up and go from there. And then your last move can either be, like, say, Volt Switch, just to be able to pivot out Iron Hands. You could run Ice or Fire Punch, and then that way you have some super effective coverage. Another option you could have on Iron Hands could be Heavy Slam, just to hit Fairy-type Pokemon, especially if you're worried about, say, bulkier Fairy types. You could double up with Dialga's Flash Cannon and then Iron Hands going for a Heavy Slam. That's a possibility. It still blows my mind that Iron Hands gets play rough, but I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because the game is how many years old now? But yeah, anyways, Iron Hands gets a lot of good coverage moves. You'd typically see the Drain Punch, Fake Out, Wild Charge, and then Heavy Slam. But honestly, you could really mix some things up there as well. And you know, I think Incineroar could be really nice for Dialga as a partner, since you do have that Intimidate support. Landorus Therian is really nice. I really liked running Landorus Therian next to my Dialga. I ran an Assault Vest on it, and then I had the Earthquake on Landorus, and then that way I was just able to just dodge raw ground type damage, which just did a lot to things in some of my practice matches with it. So I did really like having Earthquake next to Telepathy Dialga. So Landorus Variant is kind of nice in that regard, especially since, you, like Incineroar, you do get the Intimidate boost. And honestly, I think that's a lot of really good partner Pokemon at the end of the day. Whimsicott could also be a really nice partner if you don't want to play in the Trick Room setup, and then that way too, if you want to go for more speed with Tailwind, you definitely could do that. Whimsicott and Torn are really nice here. Whimsicott, you can go for Tailwind. Oh, that's Tickle. You can go for Tailwind right here. You could go for Fake Tears, similar to what I was talking about the Grimmsnarl, but the nice thing here too is, unlike Grimmsnarl, abilities like, say, Armor Tail or Queenly Majesty, they don't block the Tailwind, so you do have a more reliable speed control that way, and plus, you can also have the added benefit of Dialga having some faster partners next to it. I think Urshifu is a really good partner as well on the physical front, since Urshifu can just deal so much raw damage with close combat, and then depending on which form you're using, their signature move can do significantly good damage, especially if you wanted to, say, run a Choice Band variant. Wicked Blow is really nice off of a Choice Band, but Surging Strikes is even better since it breaks Focus Sashes, so you could really make the case for running Urshifu, Whimsicott, and Dialga together. That could be a really nice core. You don't necessarily have to go the slower route. You can definitely benefit from having all of these different Pokemon on your team at the end of the day. So just keep that in mind when you want to sit down and build around Dialga. Honestly, I think it just has a lot of potential at the end of the day, regardless of whether you're using the Origin form or the base form. The Origin form gets a little bit bulkier than the base, and honestly, I just really like the bulkier, heavy-hitting Pokemon like that. So while I didn't initially care for this design when Legends Arceus came out, the design has also really grown on me at the end of the day. But that might just be a matter of my opinion. Be sure to let me know what you think of Dialga down in the comments below, whether it is the Origin form or the OG base form that's been around all the way since the days of Diamond and Pearl. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble about this Steel Horse, and if there's anything you'd like to contribute, by all means, let me know down in the comments section below. See you next time.